Okay, we're going to get into part two here of this Real History www.com. It's a racist website that tries to make everyone believe that everyone's an albino Negro and that real Negroes were all over the world in ancient times and somehow drifted off into the past, and all that was left were the primitive pre-Stone Age Negroes that we found at the um, slave trade. And Lord knows how they became ignorant after leading everybody, but they can't figure that one out either with their lie. They're just going to go with it. We just recently looked at here James Anderson, 1911, talking about dark Welshmen and Scottish and black Celts and so on, and like we know, the Black Dutch. And this is tall, dark, and handsome, and how it doesn't have anything to do with black people whatsoever. And also the idea of swarthy meant tanned, and it means nothing to do with the Negro again also. And we also looked into Ethiopians and how that also referred to tan people and really didn't refer to the little area that we talk about now today. In fact, if you just wiki Ethiopians with the A in front of it, Aethiopians, which is the Greek term, and the people that actually coined the phrase, it'll show it to you right there. And the fact that Ethiopian were a bunch of different people all over the entire area. They referred to that way, most of which were farmers and things along that. But so he also relates it to the Berbers of North Africa and things, and they tell you that these people were a part of the original people. The Teuton inhabited the country of the North Iberians. It was Flavic in temperament, dull of intellect, but brave, warlike, and given athletic exercises. He was a flaxen-haired, long-limbed giant. And so you see this idea here talking about people, and the intellect and genius of the people of Central Europe became from farther north probably the original Aryan tribes. Their deities were Thor, Odin, Frigga, wife of Odin, and Woden and Balder, right? And then we look here where they talk about the Spaniards. And now we've already done this in the last one, and if you haven't seen it, go to the end of this one, click in the top left-hand corner, and go back to the first one. But I'm just recapping here because I want to say something about this. The first inhabitants of southern Europe, Africa, Arabia, France, and the British Islands were a race of small men who did not average more of a height than 4 foot 5 inches. They were slight of build, with dark complexion, and of course tanned. Oh, that's got to be Negroids. Well, of course, they're living around the equator during the Ice Age and stuff, people. So, hey, everybody was down there. The ice had encroached so much, the people that we see of being way north weren't quite way north yet. We're realizing all this now. Somehow we couldn't figure it out real easy with the Ice Age idea. And then, oh, well, it was Ice Age, so what? Were people living in the ice like Eskimos? No. People were smart enough to go south, to go down valleys and things like that. But the reason I show you this is that this contrast of people is what made up like what's known in the Lord of the Rings. And there's also ideas and concepts you even see in the Bible where there was giants in the land in those days and after, and the sons of God and all this type stuff it talks about, where there's giants who are really over 6 foot tall and a little bit more Cro-Magnish still over here that we're talking about, running into these dwarfs, these hobbits, that even are described as, dwarves and red-headed and ancient Scots and so on, and thick of stature and strong as hell and all that type stuff. And there's your dwarf, and they tell you they use blunt weapons and war hammers and all that. Yeah, okay. And then what are these sleight of build and the young things? Oh, okay, this is like your hobbits and that type of thing. And just to mention that, because I do have a Lord of the Rings thing coming up series that I'm going to do, and whenever I do, it'll kind of show you where he gets this from and pulled ideas that Tolkien actually had in the ancient times. Had this since I was a kid, really, from just watching The Hobbit and doing things like that, and then reading all the books that went along with it way before the movies came out. I thought they did a great job on the movies, but let's just go on. I'll talk about that in those videos. He goes on to tell you stories of Scots and things right here. So, thus the Cruithne or Picard, northern and southern Picts of Scotland, are frequently distinguished by the Welsh chroniclers as Gwydlyn Don or the Gwydlyn Din, or black or fair Gaels. And of course, this is the. And now, people have to understand. I guess some people don't, maybe black people don't, that whenever you have a blonde population like Scandinavia, there's a few redheads in there, some browns, and a lot of black-haired people too. But there's a lot of blondes. It's like, there's a lot of blondes there. When you get into European area, there seems to be more of a mixy mix. When you get into Ireland and Scotland, there's a lot more redheads than there is in the other places, and so on. And this led people to make different ideas on what happened had gone on, because they knew at ancient times certain people like redheads were always the kings, and certain things like blonde-haired people were always the kings, and so on. And did this bring this about? And did these people have a dark and swarthy kingdom, and therefore it went that way? Really, none of this involves Negroids at all, of course. But he wants to point out black. Oh my God, and so Caucasians use colors in quite any way they want to in describing things. And of course, lightness is seen to be as wisdom in things that are doing good. Black is seen as doing bad. And this is a problem we've had ever since we found black people and went, oops. But hey, we already had this concept, light and dark, and light and darkness, and day and night, and the whole 9 yards. I think everybody has this idea. You just don't want to personify that. And it seems to be that's happening that way, this coveting, this trying to steal somebody else's history and religion. So he tells you Southern Picts, there's only a combination of the Celtic dudub, black with generic name adopted by them. The Scoti appeared to have been the fair race, which perhaps assumed the indication of pure Caucasian origin, than the Cuthini or Gwedlin Dian of the north. They are termed the Welsh Triads, the Gwydlyn Gauk or Red Gaels, which the name of Scot, which has adhered to them and to the later country of their adoption, is none other than that of nomad, scuta, which means wanderer, and first appeared to the refugees, as we conceive, from Spain, who in the second century BC fought and sought a new home among the Irish Celtic, or Celtae. It has been noted, however, in reference to the former appellation, and it stops there and goes to the next page, and he cuts it off there, and that's an important thing, and he's going to leave it off of there. But they talk about how there is a concept of there was an expulsion out of northern Africa or Egypt that had come into there at one time, a long time ago, and that Scata is supposed to be Akhenaten's daughter, and Mariaten, known as Scotia, or Little Flower, is what that comes to in the language of the people that were there. And she was a redhead. And but, of course, has other traits, too. You don't end up having all redheads. You can take a bunch of redheads, put them on an island, breed them together, and you're going to have different colored haired people. And I guess you could keep killing off everybody except for redheads, but it's not going to work that way. It's just not going to work that way. So, they tell you that the word, the originally Greek, soda, or Scythia, right? Scythia. Scythian applied to Scythians with a view of restless, roving disposition of the people. Analogous, let me see if I can just come in here on this for y'all. Analogous to this idea, the Persians called the same people, Saka. And God, this is all just blurred whenever I get it this far. And the Sakai, Persian sak, is plainly incognated in the Hebrew shakak. Discourse says that in confirmation of this, it is of this etymon, it is obscured that the Scots borders used to call themselves Scoots and Skites, as we learned from Camden. So this shows you that they have connections with the Scythians and the Saka and the Sakasuni. Then he tells you the Saxon Scots. This is the Isaac and Kurgan burial people that had come in. This is the sons of Isaac. This is Isaac Kurgan burials. Isaac's sons, who ends up being Saxons, right? Saxon Scots readily adopted this name, being ignorant of this original import, but the Highlanders have always been deemed in terms of reproach, and consequently retained their original denomination, which is Albanach, right, which means the light-skinned people, or people of the snow. It also illustrations of northern antiquities. He just mentions a thing here. Connection with this, it is important to note the observation of Major Rawlinson in reference to the indications of the aboriginal races of Asia afforded by the cuneitive description. He conceives that Sake or Simri, frequently mentioned on the inscriptions of Khorzabad and who appear to have been generally introduced into Assyrian Empire about the 13th century before Christ, were probably of Scythian origin. He, however, thinks that possibly to identify this tribe immediately with the Gaelic Simri. So Gauls and Galas, right? And Jesus was a Gala priest. Let's leave that aside. It appears more probably that under the name of Simri, the Assyrians included all the nomad tribes from whom they were acquainted with respect to ethnological family, but he suggested that the Celtic subsequently applied this generic name specifically to themselves. Among the Mongols of present day, in particular tribe, have taken the name of Eluth or Iliat, and that is going to the Akkadians, and Il is of the gods, Iliat, which Ilu and all those things are Sumerian Akkadian words for the god. But he notes a near nomadic population, yet we know that all these static populations had these words. Sumerians and so on, Assyrians, later Syria, same people, all the way up Tigris and Euphrates. Not going to be like, oh, well, it's all different. No, it ended up being quite the same people, but then they were invaded by another people. There's the Hyksos that come down later, but we'll get to all that. He's showing a lot of this real history. The problem is that none of them contain black people at all. Just because people have black hair doesn't mean a damn thing. Or dark in features like James Bond. The other tribes with which the Assyrians were chiefly sought in contact were the Sheta or Kaita in Syria and Ludi in Lower Babylonia. The former tribe well is known inscription of Egypt, and the later were probably the same people who were mentioned in Ezekiel under the name of Lud, or the Ludites, in connection with Phut and Elam. And Phut is Libya, and they tell you that in Josephus. He makes clear indication that that's what that is. And the Northern Caucasians were supposedly Hamites. And if we look up Hamites, let's do that. First, we'll show you that Ethiopia didn't actually mean what you think it means, and not the little place that it is now. Well, I can't believe that won't come down. But wow, there we go. So you can see that Ethiopia at one time meant a large area. Wow. I think we're about to lose it here. It's trying. Let's just get out of that page here. So if we look at Hamites here, Hamites, from the biblical Ham, is a historical term in 19th to 20th century etymology and linguistics, a division of the Caucasian race. Well, what's the Caucasian race? Well, let's go to that real quick. Caucasians. This is the way their skulls look, and you can tell the difference between those and Negroids very easy. Caucasians, also like Europeoid, is a grouping of human beings historically regarding as biological taxon, which, depending on which historical race classifications used, have usually included some or all of the ancient modern populations of Europe, Western Asia, Central Asia, South Asia, North Africa, and the Horn of Africa. All the way through. Not where Ethiopia is now. No. That's what it is now. Bantu expansion. Things happening. I'm not rewriting things. Someone else is trying. Let's go back. Hamites. When we look at the map here, if it'll show up right. Yep, see the top of that up there? All that blue's Hamites. They're saying black people can be down here below the Sahara, But all the way out here, all the way around, all the way around. And then there's these special guys, these Hottentots we'll talk about sometime here real soon. Totally different people, not related. And Khoisan, not related to the Negroids that are over here in the West African area. And you'll find there's a little pack of them right in there. There's also some pygmies. But that's probably another thing. But so they tell you here that nomenclature gradually fell out of favor between the 1960s and 1980s. I wonder why. In a large part due to its perceived association with colonial paternalism. So the population's Semitic ancestral stock are now commonly known as Caucasoid. Caucasoid. The people of the Bible, and of course the Bible was written about Caucasians and the Caucasians of the area over there. People try to say now, Jesus has all the colors of the world, and I'm sure Jesus does, but he didn't speak of them, and they're not listed in the Bible. No one is, except for Caucasians of that area. So let's go back here and get going. He tells you, we may confidently anticipate that these researched into the races and language of Central and region of Asia, from whence we believe the human family to have gradually diffused over remote centuries until the first colonists reached our own western island, yet furnished much of the and it cuts off their prehistoric world. And that's from Sir Daniel Wilson, 1851. So you can tell people had it figured out a long time ago. And finally, out of the very mouths of halfway honest albino scientists, you see this racist guy here, the piece de resistance, pardon our French. No, you don't speak French. That's another Caucasian language. Doesn't have anything to do with your people. All your languages that you speak now don't have anything to do with your people. And no one's trying to speak Zulu or anything now, not even yourselves. But, so they tell you here that, check this out, Macedonians and sub-Saharan origin of the Greeks. No, it doesn't say sub-Saharan origin. It says sub-Saharan admix. And it's not talking about Negroids either. It's amazing. It's talking about Negroids having admix backwards. They want to turn this around. It's like, well, the African Americans of the Jewish slave trade have some Caucasian admix from that. And they were like, well, see, whites come from us. And it's like, what? Yeah. Anyhow, I'm not going to read through this whole thing. You can pause it if you want to and sit and read it and stuff. But basically, it tells you that genetic closest between the ancient Ethiopian Greeks and sub-Saharan groups and the Mediterranean groups cluster more together in dendrograms and analysis of certain locales and genuses things here. And what this leads to, by the way, is just that there was an ancient primordial primate of the area back whenever we were hominids that everybody in that area seems to have a connection to. But it doesn't mean modern in any way. And let's see. He's going to talk here that Neolithic people they found in the Bronze Age and cranial forms and stuff. And Mediterranean people here through the Middle East, and they're closely related to each other. The surprise is that the Neolithic peoples of Europe and the Bronze Age successors are not closely related to modern inhabitants. And of course, instantly the black people go, oh, well, they were black. And it's like, no, they weren't black. It's just they can tell subtle, slight differences between skull forms. And they're telling you, due to the size of these people, like we talked about a minute ago, in stature and things like that, that these people are separated long enough that they're different from each other. They're all Caucasians, of course. Although the prehistoric modern ties are somewhat more apparent in southern Europe, it's further surprised that Epipaleolithic Natufian of Israel from Neolithic were seen to arise a clear link to sub-Saharan Africa. Basque and Canary Islanders are clearly associated with modern Europeans. When cranial variations are plotted, neither sample ties with Cro-Magnon was once suggested. And actually it does. We just talked about it a minute ago. The taller and bigger people that had ties with them. And then, just like blacks had a pygmy form. You see what I'm saying? It's not really a pygmy form. It's more of a dwarven form. But it's more looked at as being the real form because of the people that were around. And the others are the giants. You see that? Okay. Now, if you're one of the giants, then you talk about the little people and the wee people. And you see how that works. Okay. anyhow, so it tells you, demic diffusion, situ in areas, blah, blah, blah. The Neolithic goes 10,200 BC to 4,500, but Pleistocene goes way back to 126,000 years. And we're finding that, yeah, the Pleistocene go back, but you know what? That was off of a date, off of how far these people they had found. Well, now they found those people going back in East Africa, some 210,000 BC, and then now they found Irwa Iliru has them at 310,000 BC, so it's quite strange. And so now he's going to tell you what they thought. What Brace and his colleagues are saying here is that the African farmers who had migrated up in the Middle East started to spread out across the Mediterranean area in Europe. They encountered the Khoisan Grimaldi hunter-gatherer people. You can't put that together. There's no lion, duck, chicken. He encountered the Grimaldi hunter people who had nothing to do with Khoisan from far sub-Saharan Africa, but they have a common ancestor in a hominid. Around 45,000 BC, those Khoisan Grimaldi people then absorbed the Middle Easters and their farming culture. Well, if we look at it, then that's not true. What happened is the Caucasians there absorb the Khoisan, because you don't see black people there, you see Caucasians, but in their admix, not so much. But it's possible that that dark appearance, that swarthy, that tall, dark, and handsome that they have built into the Arabs, that's not really evident in the Europeanoids and the Egyptians and so on like that, and the Berbers that we see that have this blonde and red hair trait, may have to do with an ancient hominid, not these people, but a predecessor to those people, 45,000 BC. The oldest Negroid skull ever found to date right now, and it's a proto-Negroid, not even what they call a modern one like this, but a proto-Negroid, is 9100 BC. So we're not talking about modern people. Although by flip-flop, we have Cro-Magnon man considered a modern man, and by the elder definition of it, at 38,000 to 40,000 BC. But now we've decided to make everybody even, and the most primitive people in the world, if we say we're all modern humans, that actually takes us to Homo sapiens sapiens, and that's that Iru Aliru man that keeps getting older and older, and now we find that in comparison, we're at 315,000 BC. And that's reality. So he talks about the Oigas, Turks, right? And how the Turks here are the Uzes, were actually from way up north in the China area, and now they live in Turkey, but they didn't before. We've shown you that before, where they had their migration coming into where they are into Turkey now, and they brought a lot of that tall dark in too. But it's a different tall dark than the tall dark that was already over in the other area, not to be too confused with the tall light and Cro-Magnon and so on that were going on. Other than that, wish I could show you some pictures that come to mind right now, but Balkan states, the countries of Balkan Peninsula: Croatia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Slovenia, Serbia, Montenegro, Kosovo, Macedonia, Romania, Bulgaria, Armenia, Greece, and the European part of Turkey. Right? Those all have a commonality into them now. Some of it's an admix, some of it's endemics, some of it's a blend over time, and of course there's been a lot of problems there in the last even just a couple hundred years here. There has been some push and pull. So Slav people are a member of the most numerous ethnic and linguistic body of peoples of Eastern Europe, residing chiefly in Eastern and Southeastern Europe, but extending across into Northern Asia and the Pacific Ocean. Slavic languages include the Indo-European family, so they're all part of it too. Customarily, Slavs are subdivided into East Slavs, chiefly Russians, Ukrainians, and Belarusians, and West Slavs, chiefly Poles, Czech, and Slovaks, Wends, and Serbs, and South Slavs, chiefly Serbs, Sorbs. South Slavs, chiefly Serbs, Croats, Bosnians, Slovenes, Macedonians, and Montenegrins. Bulgarians, thought of mixed origin, like the Hungarians, speak a Slavic language and are designated as being South Slavs. The majority of Slavic Muslims are found in Bosnia, Herzegovina, and southern Bulgaria. And that has no bearing on anything, but he's just trying to throw in dissension there. This time we don't know what the invading Turks and Slavs did to the black people of Eastern Europe after the destruction of the Black Eastern Roman European Empire, Byzantine 1543. We know what they did with it. Nothing. It didn't exist. You're a liar. Black people weren't there. There were no black empires. Black people didn't do anything. It's disgusting that you sit and put off lies like this. The black empire. Who? No. Nobody was a Negro at those times. Look, it's not racist to correct a Negro whenever he lies. It's not racist to point out that Negroes are becoming quite racist and inciting their own racist problems due to lies. They're winding themselves all up on this. Oh, look, and they're lying. They're wiring themselves up on a lie. They're trying to make a lie and then wire themselves up on it. It's disgusting. They're by their own hand causing their own problems. The first European bus created from fragments of a fossil. And I've already debunked this right here, this picture right here. Just simply, let's look at one thing. You look at the width of the nostrils of this Caucasian, which is a arrow or an A-shaped nostril, not a round. Negroids have a round looking or a shovel head looking nostril hole. It's something you can easily see. You look at a skeleton, forensic notice this, long ago. Simple, you can tell what somebody is. Even admixed, things like that, bridges of nose. There is so much cranial information you can get out of a skull. And one thing for sure, this nose can't fit on that. Or where those nostrils are would be breathing out of about right here on the side of his thing, and it wouldn't connect. You'd have to channel in somehow off of it. It's a foolish notion in any way, shape, or form that this guy could have been looking like that. That nose has got to be a little skinnier. Well, let's skinny that nose some. Now he's bald, so he looks kind of like he's black and stuff. Well, no, he's not. What color are his eyes? Whose nose? Maybe they're blue. Let's take that nose in a little bit. Look at that mouth. That's not a Negroid lips and stuff. The Caucasian structure of the head here, he's not prognostic in any way. If we gave him blue eyes and put some eyebrows on him, Negroes don't have much eyebrows or facial hair, but Caucasians do. If we put some thicker eyebrows on him and just gave him any color of hair whatsoever that's not nappy Bantu knots, boom! Caucasian burials, love burials. Grimaldi, man and old woman here, 43,000 BC. What the stain that's all across this is red ochre. It's red ochre burials that they've had since primordial times. As with the case with white people and information regarding race, there's always likelihood of falsehood and misinterpretation, only by jealous Negroids who want a twist. In this case, the Roman bones are not even close to being the oldest found in Europe. Oh no, so now he's going to debunk his own bunk. The honor goes to the skeletons that were found in caverns of Grimaldi, Belarus, between Montone and Ventimiglia in Italian side of the international boundary. Oh, and by the way, they like to spout this stuff out there. And where did they learn this from? Oh, it's Caucasian history and Caucasian written stuff. Black people don't have any accumulation of anything like this. They haven't even tried. And they can't do it to their own people because they don't have any written language. And they don't want to do it to their own people because they don't have anything. They want you to believe that they were the founders of the white people somehow. Really? Well, the Bible says that one Negro got cursed as Ham. Well, no, it actually doesn't. Hamites, we just proved, weren't at all either. But you want to believe up until right now with your lie that didn't come there. Well, out of Africa. Well, now that doesn't mean out of Negroids. It never did. Negroids were the thing that never made it out of Africa and didn't evolve into the people that now can fly and go into space. I mean, it's not racist to point that out either. It's actually just true. So truth isn't racist. Or if it is, then racist is bullshit and we're just going to go ahead and go with it. Real is real. Reality is reality. Yep. And the yammer is racism. Understand that correctly. These caverns form one of the most compact groups of Paleolithic caverns in all of Europe. Skeletons are complete and date to 43,000 BC. There's more in Grimaldi skeletons of these ancient Proto-Caucasians. So while the fuss over a few bones and stuff, the bust above provides that can be undeniable. No, the bust above proves nothing. In fact, the other recreations of it don't look at all like that, but you won't show those. It can be claimed that these were not truly modern humans. It's proto-human, but rather a link in the chain to white people as modern humans. Humanoid Cro-Magnon is often used to make this bogus case. No, it's not actually. It's the natural form of things and science, and so now you're trying to use science to debunk science with science? You look retarded. Please stop. The reason that nobody mentions the Grimaldi skeletons is that they destroy all deniability. They are undeniably modern humans and are of close resemblance to the San or Khoisan of South Africa. Yeah, I guess so, if you just say everybody's got some knees and some elbows, but other than that, they're not. Khoisan have a connection to them from an ancient thing, but then again, West Africans don't have any connection to that. So it's a moot point for them to yammer about it, just like any other civilization. And that's even in Africa. So now we find we get a lot smaller of an area that they can yammer about, and it keeps getting smaller as they keep trying to put themselves out into places they never were or even knew about. He says, Khoisan, end of story. So to use them would preclude any possibility of falsehood of information. Okay, let's just say this is hypothetical. It's wrong, but it's hypothetical. That was true. Okay, so Grimaldi man, so a black man made it up in there, and what happened? Well, apparently, if you'll look, they didn't make it. No, they didn't make it. No, they didn't make it. Let's say they went everywhere first. They went everywhere first and died and didn't make it because they didn't make it. There's no absorbing. There's no turning into albinos or any foolish thing like that. What happened? Didn't make it. All these proto things, if you're going to say, well, every proto thing was black and then whites are just, they were created last week. Whatever you want to try to dream up in your mind to make you feel better, there were no blacks involved with anything that created any of the civilizations that we talk about that come out of history. So it's all just kind of a moot point. But let's continue. Of course, some might say that Russians have been making busts of the original black Europeans for years. Of course, that would be said by racist black individuals who are lying and have no clue what they're talking about. And the Russians are white, which is true. But the Russians do not have the same investment in racism and racial superiority that Europeans and descendants of the Americans have. I guess that's because they don't really feel like they were involved in the Negro slave trade or anything being that far up. And so they don't have to deal with the yammering. And they're up there cold enough where black people really don't want to come up there too much. But of course, that may change as Russia moves closer to Europe culturally and politically. So now a continent's going to move. It's amazing. Black people, Whitey can do all these things, can't he? It's amazing. How does he move closer? You don't know anything about how Russia broke up and turned into all the countries and it's all still the same thing, and it's not moving. It's not moving. Well, Grimaldi migration to Europe, and we're going to start getting into actual Caucasian history and leading up into all this stuff, and he really does go into real history here. So I want to separate this as being a total separate thing, and we're going to go through the ancient Aryans and how the Proto-Europeans and how it all happened and didn't involve a Negro one in any of it. But and we're going to do this as a separate thing. I know this didn't get as long as some of the other ones do, but I'd like to do this section just right. I may want to do this next one as its own separate entity because, like I said, he's got some good information. He didn't compile it. He got it from other people. But it does show a lot of correlations to what I've been telling you about. It's almost just walking right into it. So up here, we're going to go to part 3. Should be up there. Now, if you haven't seen part 1 again, part 1 is on your top left right there. And on your right is going to be part 3. And we'll go into this. And I'll probably do another copy of this and call it something else. You'll see it. It'll seem like it's the same type of copy. Or maybe I'll do a whole vamp over the whole thing again. I'd hate to go through all of that. I think we'll just do the copy and call it something different to be a different set in its own entity. Like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy. And hey, here comes part 3. Peace.